heart in a wild twisted maze. Let us steal and fire, the open roads are thrown. By your life televised, we're breaking every bone. Adrenaline surges, brace off the fall. Hitting it with HardWire. Hear the engine scream. Living fast and reckless, this is our metal dream. Riding hard, never slowing. In the spotlight we shine. A biker's brutal journey. This life is ours divine. With HardWire, the crowd screams our name. Chasing down the shadows, we're addicted to the fame. Chains rattling loud, the brotherhood's alive. Every episode turns up, we're here to survive. From dusk till dawn, we're the kings of this brew. Hitting it with HardWire. Hear the engine scream. Living fast and reckless, this is our metal dream. Riding hard, never slowing. In the spotlight we shine. A biker's brutal journey. This life is ours divine. On the edge of chaos, we embrace the feel. Hitting it with HardWire. We'll always be here.
Hey everybody, welcome to Hittin It with HardWire. Good to see everybody. And yeah, boy, I'm feeling rough today. We got a special guest today. Anybody else want to hop in here a little bit? Hop in a little bit. But let's see if we can get him in here.
Hey, how's everybody doing today? Audio
There
good?
you are. How's it going?
Audio all good?
Yep, I can hear you.
All right, perfect. Because I'm a very low-tech kind of guy.
That's all right. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
That's why I still use old wired headphones.
Yeah, we was going to talk a little bit today about the declining birth rate in America. But first, how about you introduce yourself to everybody that hasn't got a chance to meet you yet?
Blair, 1%er. Live down here in South Texas, and that's about it.
Yeah, that's about as much as you're allowed to say, huh?
Yes, sir. I can throw in that I'm originally from Southern California, so.
You're originally from not too far from where Mike was from, huh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Him and I are probably only about, well, when he moved, we were probably only about 45 minutes away from each other without traffic.
Right on.
Yep.
I keep getting weird messages pop up on this thing. StreamYard keeps changing everything all the time. Yeah, I've had a little bit of a rough weekend. I went out and celebrated Friday for my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, man.
My birthday's actually Wednesday. I'll turn a ripe old 48. But I celebrated it on Friday. Went out to one of my favorite local places and wanted to get a little buzz going and sing some karaoke and have a good time and you know how it is. The brothers all show up and start wanting to feed you shots and yeah, after about the 10th shot, I start going, I'm going to go to the bathroom, and I walk out the door and barf all over the inside of the trash can. I feel better, and I went right back in, went back at it, singing songs and everything else. Everybody else said, well, usually when people barf, man, they're done for. I said, nope, that's not how it works. I'm a champ. I barf and go right back at it.
Yeah, we had one of those a couple weekends ago, and everybody lost track about how many shots I had, and I don't remember anything after the first two shots.
Yeah, I was drinking Fireball, so I can drink quite a few of those. That's not too awful high proof. I used to drink Yukon Jack all the time, but my stomach don't like it anymore.
Mm,
That was
mm.
100 proof stuff, but now if I pour 100 proof down, even if it's my first shot, it'll go down and won't come right back out. My
Yeah,
stomach won't care for it.
yeah, none of that stuff in me. I can drink beer all night long and maintain and have a great time. And man, if the shots come out, and in fact, pretty much everybody in my chapter knows, like, if there's shot glasses involved, like, keep me away from them, because who knows what's liable to happen.
Right. Yeah, I tell everybody I don't drink very often. I bet it's the first time I drank in, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. But I always say when I do it, I do a good job of it.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like me. So,
And sometimes I forget that I don't have the tolerance that I once did.
Dude, ain't that the truth, man? I'm only a couple years behind you, and man, I remember being 20s and even in my 30s. And man, you go all night long, wake up the next morning, drink a Gatorade, feel pretty decent all day. Man, now it takes a whole day to get over anything.
Yeah, I don't feel right for about 3 or 4 days. One day I feel real rough, but for 3 or 4 days I just don't feel right. I feel down.
Yep.
Yeah, I looked into this declining birth rate stuff a little bit. I didn't get a chance to do a lot of research, but it was shocking though that whenever you mentioned you thought it'd be a good show. I looked up a little bit of the statistics, and I was honestly quite surprised. I didn't.
Oh no, it's crazy.
I didn't realize. Like, what did I see that between 15 and 19 years old back in the 90s, it's gone down from the 90s to now to almost like 40% or something, and that's crazy.
Yeah, and then so like to get it, and like if we want to start it, ages 14 to 29, the intersection point with that age group and the age group of 30 to 49 in 2024 is less than 1.0. So that means, like, now in 2024, 30 to 49-year-olds are having the same birth rate as 14 to 29-year-olds. Like, that's crazy to me. Just like, one, that they've tracked the first statistic, 14 to 29, because I mean, I know, MTV and their teen mom thing, but just that they even track that statistic is crazy to me. And I only looked up a couple places. I looked up, one of them is the CBO.gov, which is Congressional Budget Office. I guess they track it for a fiscal standpoint. Partially, my opinion is, I believe, because they all think we're cattle. And so we mean nothing other than we can pay money into the system.
Right, that's without a doubt. If you've ever been in any place, even in retail or any business, when you get to be higher ups, that's how they start thinking about people. And imagine if you're high up enough in the government, they just think of us all as consumers, pretty much. Just existing.
Yeah, we're just every individual citizen is considered, a cog in the machine, grinding out money for the machine, and making an income so we can pay back into the system, paying our taxes and everything. And it's all, like I said, we're nothing more than cattle, because all we are is, a profitability for the government in some way or another. And it's, and the other thing that I found out that was real interesting to me, the CIA even tracks birth rates in America. Now, I find it real amazing that the CIA cares about the birth rate in America. And I'm sure you and I probably have the same agreement on the government and why are they tracking shit.
Yeah. The CIA is not really supposed to be involved in anything domestic.
My point exactly.
So that is a strange one. And
Mm-hmm.
I, as you think about it, I would not at all doubt that. Well, one of the reasons why they letting so many Mexicans and illegals into the country is because they want votes. But the other reason is they trying to keep population as close to consistent as possible. And if the birth rates are declining, they're trying to find ways to keep the population up. And I
Mm-hmm.
still really think, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but I really think they're really planning on another world war. I think they think it, and they're pushing and think it's coming, and they know we don't have the population to send people to war. It would decimate, America's population if we sent people to war, and when people started dying, there just wouldn't be
A
much
hundred,
here.
100%, 100% on that. You look at, I mean, to one of the biggest things, I mean, mainly because I studied it a lot when I was in school, was like World War II. And you look at the amount of young men that died in World War II and what that did, hence the reason when the survivors did come back, they had so many kids and known as the baby boomer generation, their kids, because they had to basically repopulate the United States because of how many people did die. World War I was the same type of situation also. And, they created, and I forget what they call the generation before the baby boomers. I guess the greatest generation would be that group, I think. But they did the same thing because of how many young men died, in World War I, World War II, Vietnam. We had a lot of casualties also. But when they came back, because of their reception that they received coming home, the birth rate wasn't quite as high as what World War II had. Because they were just looked down upon by so many U.S. citizens that people didn't want to have anything to do with them, which, goes into a lot of the problems that, those people, that group of people, I should say, have had to deal with. PTSD is what they call it now. And coming home and not getting any of the help and all that stuff, which, obviously is really unfortunate. But what I also found real interesting in looking up some of this stuff was the big drop in the birth rate happened in 2007, 2008. And they're calling that, the second Great Recession is what they're calling it, according to government websites. I think that's kind of a hyperbolic way to put it, because I don't see it being nearly as bad as what we had in the true Great Depression. But that's when the birth rates really started to drop, was back in 2007, 2008. Because everything got so out of whack, money-wise, income-wise. People lost, homes that they probably had just purchased to start their family, and then they lose their home and they lose their livelihood. Couldn't afford to survive themselves, let alone, to start an actual family with kids.
Yeah, I know it was a struggle. I only raised 2 kids, and it was a struggle. It just ain't like it used to be. Even my grandparents, they come from families 10 kids and things like that, and
Right.
they would stick 10 kids in a small 1-bedroom house. But now, if you do that, the welfare will come in and try to take your kids.
I know, and that's a whole nother topic, the welfare state. But that's probably been one of the biggest detriments to American society, is the U.S. government creating the welfare state. And primarily, in my opinion, the government created that solely to target specific communities of people or races of people, demographics of people, probably a better term to put that in order to break up the nucleus family. But like I said, that's a totally different topic in a whole hour-long show on its own. So maybe we could save that topic for another day.
Yeah, I agree. As I'm trying to think of the best way to word this, but I really think the country, the way that it has become, one of the biggest problems with people wanting to have kids now is just a real lack of hope. There just seems to be no hope for a better future. The government's become so large and so corrupt, and society's become so divided, and there's so much hatred that people just don't have a lot of hope for bringing kids into the world to have them have a brighter future. It just seems like the world's just going downhill. To me, that's why I did that show
Mm-hmm.
not too long ago about what all the old church ladies used to preach about, all this horrible music and all this other things, and how society degrades over time. It wasn't necessarily the music, you know what I mean, but it was a way of bringing up the topic. But because we have let things go so much, that's why we've gotten all these LGBTQ people storming the streets and all this other things, because we gave them an inch and they took a mile. You know what I'm saying? And now the future, it's like you just don't know what to expect. I mean, eventually it's got to kind of be self-correcting and pull itself back together, or else it's just going to be chaos.
Yeah, and I mean, to put it into, to relate it to like the motorcycle community, and a little bit about club stuff, but a lot of the clubs were started, vets coming back from wars. And part of that was, the brotherhood, the camaraderie, and everything else, and the adrenaline addiction and whatnot. But also some of that had to do with rebelling against normal society. And anytime that they push for an extreme one way or another, you're always going to have a group of people that are going to swing the pendulum to the other direction. And a lot of times that swing is a lot farther than it should have been taken, just because
You get a correction, but you kind of get an overcorrection.
Exactly. It overcorrects because the group that screams the loudest usually gets their way. And, trying to make it so societal when it comes to, music, video games, stuff like that. I grew up listening to all that music and everything. Like I said, I'm only a couple years younger than you, and I played all the crazy video games and all that stuff. I still love some Call of Duty every now and then, and man, I remember old Call of Duty rooms. The chat rooms in there were just off the hook about what you could say and everything before they started moderating it. But now that they're moderating it all, they boot you off, and it's like, well, it's not nearly as much fun anymore. But it's that swing in the pendulum that's just crazy. So,
and a lot of hypocriticalness. They want to complain about violence in video games, yet they stick it in movies constantly. You know what I mean? There's they zero in on what they don't like, but at the same time they have it in all their shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's there's a lot of hypocriticalness. And I'm not a huge conspiracy theory kind of person too much. I believe that there's usually some truth in all the conspiracy theories you hear, but usually not. You know what I mean? There's not, most of them aren't true, but there's usually a degree of truth in there,
Mm-hmm.
The declining birth rate, at the same time as I want to say that it could be population control, but that only kind of applies if population is getting out of control, and we're not even making enough people now to replace what we have.
Yeah. In 2024, our birth rate is 1.786 per woman, which is actually up 0.11% from 23. Um, and you figure that, you know, besides the whole, LGBTQ community movement, all of that stuff, it takes a man and a woman to have a baby. So if you're having less than two, you're going to have a declining birth rate regardless. And anything barely over two is still considered not a growing population because you've got not only infant mortality involved in that, but you have, just for an example, a family gets in a car wreck and, the kids die. Well, now the whole family has been wiped out. So, instead of just losing two, you've lost four or, however many was in the car wreck. So you need to have, more than two just to have where the population can grow at a slow rate, because you never want to grow the population at a fast rate, because then you end up with issues like what we're seeing in Colorado and Chicago and New York, and where there's not housing for them, and it creates a burden on the local economies, the local government, and just the local citizens that have already been living there. So it does need to grow at a nominal pace, but it needs to still grow regardless, which is part of the reason why I believe, in my opinion, is they're allowing so many criminal aliens to cross the border, because according to what I found in statistics, that by the time of 2040, the deaths and births are going to be so out of whack that the only way to keep the population growing is to have immigration make up that difference, so we can have a growing economy and a growing population. Because without a growing population, you don't have a growing economy. You become stagnant, and then your society starts to go downhill because of it.
Right. As a country, we've and I keep telling everybody, I says we've become such consumers. We buy so much, and our standard of living in America is really high. But whenever they allow immigration, so many people to immigrate, and
Mm-hmm.
that's all them people are saying, well, we have such good things in our country, we should be able to just share it. And I keep saying, well, if we all start sharing, then all of our way of living changes, and all the all of our standard of living goes from good, starts declining rapidly. And
Oh,
we're
100%.
just not used to that, and we're seeing it already. And with inflation and everything else, everybody's way of living is decreasing drastically. I'm used to having a refrigerator full of food, but fuck, I can't barely afford anything now,
Dude,
especially
tell me
meat.
about it.
I keep telling
I've
everybody the
got
only way I get meat's in microwave meal.
I've got two young boys. I got an 11-year-old and a 4-year-old. And within the last roughly 12 months, 13 months, I look at our grocery bill and what we have, in the refrigerator and the pantry and all that stuff. And I'm like, man, and don't get me wrong, I love me some canned chili and, some canned chicken and stuff like that. But at the same point in time, it's like, man, why are we eating so much canned stuff lately? But it's just because of how much everything costs, which, obviously goes to the reason why people are having less kids, because they're like, hey, I can barely, you know, feel like I take care of myself. How am I supposed to take care of other people too? Um, and then so many more people now are living in cities than out in the country, and not having the room, and with rent being so crazy, just all of everything is so expensive nowadays that, you're paying $2,000 to $2,500 a month for a tiny apartment somewhere. Like, you can't raise a family in a small one bedroom apartment. It's just not feasible. And then let alone to have, say you can afford a 2-bedroom apartment. Well, now, unless you have 2 boys or 2 girls, you know, you're not going to live in a 2-bedroom apartment, you know? So it the financial strain on it, you know, there's, which I believe is the reason why so many people now are waiting till they get older to have kids, because they want to feel like they have that more financial stability. Which, I mean, I remember talking to my grandparents and even my parents, when I did talk to my parents, that regardless of how financially stable you think you are, you're still never ready to have kids, because
Right.
it's still an unknown. And it's not like they come with an instruction manual taped to their back, so you have no idea what you're doing. You know, you just got to make the best choice with what you feel at, you know, any given time. Um, but that whole financial standpoint of it, I think, has become a lot more of a populist thinking than it used to be back, you know, even when I was a kid.
Well, it used to be, you just kind of, like I always say, life happens,
Yeah,
and I
100%.
had kids. I didn't plan it that way, or didn't plan to when I had kids, but you find a way to make it work. You just, life happens. I always say that. Anytime you try to plan something in life, you're going to find out that almost nothing goes according to plan. You just got to kind of go with the flow and figure it out as you go. Uh, and like you said, being a parent, there's no instruction book that pops out with the kid, and they're all different, and it's not easy being a parent for sure, especially when
Oh
the
yeah.
government wants to get their hands in on it. And like at one point in time, we had when one of my ex-wives, I had 2 of my own and 4 stepkids and running around the house. I had 6 of them running around the house at one time, and it was constantly the government trying to stick their nose in our business, and I'm like, dude, I can't afford a house big enough to give all these kids their own bedroom. What the
Right.
fuck do you want me to do? And they just, I said, what the hell happened to those days? You used to be able to, like my grandpa, I think they said they grew up in a 2-room house and had 10 kids, you know, and you used to be able to do that. And the government sticking their nose in your business really,
Yep.
is a detriment to people who want to have big families.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I grew up in the house that my mom grew up in, and she had 2 sisters and a brother, and they grew up in a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house, in Southern California. Now it was out in the country, so you know they had 5 acres of property. And in fact, back when you used to lock the kids out all day long, my grandfather built a drinking fountain, because his dad was a mason. So, you know, masonry kind of ran in the family a little bit. And so he went out and he built a masonry drinking fountain for the kids. So literally he could kick them out, lock the door, and say, y'all come back when it gets dark and we'll unlock the door for you. But they had a drinking fountain to drink out of right outside the back patio, and that's where they got water from, you know. But there was 4 of them in this little house, you know, 4 kids plus, you know, grandmother and grandfather in the house. And you know, the house is maybe, I don't know, 1,500 square feet at the biggest. You know, there was no dining room. It was literally the kitchen table. Um, that's how it was. And you know, I think now with us being such a consumer society and a spending society, to where we've always got to have, you know, the most expensive cars, the big house, and that mindset has really pulled us away from the typical Americana values, you know, that the country held in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and even into the 60s. You know, and you can see that it changes. Like the house that I live in was built in 79, and it's a big house, especially for 70 standards. And it's only a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, but all the rooms are just really big in it. Um, But in the 70s and 80s is when all of that stuff started to change to where it's like, oh, you've got to have this big house if you want to have these kids and all this stuff. And I think it really pulled us away from that Americana mentality and values that made America what America is and what made it great. I mean, and not to say we're still not a great country. You know, I still love our country 100%. You know, I abide by the I love my country, but I hate my government standpoint 100%. That's exactly how I feel about it.
Hey, we finally got Mike. He's a little late today, but he finally came. Yeah.
Oh, he's happy he got it. He's happy he got his leg working. So he's probably out doing laps in the yard.
I still think we need to make him a pogo stick for that leg, and he just kind of bounce around. Might get places faster. I still think a lot of the issues in this country comes from as the farther we get away from a major world confrontation, society has gotten extremely spoiled, and we don't really know true atrocity. So you get all these kids thinking our rights are being violated because we can't use the same bathroom, blah 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 blah. And you get all these dumb things that people want to fight over because they don't know real atrocity. They've not seen how bad the world can be, and when you don't have those kind of things, you get people fighting over idiotic, dumb things. And we've ventured so far from patriotism in this country. Unfortunately, it's going to take something really bad to bring people together. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah, and I just got a chance last night when I was sitting out back here on my back patio to watch Mike Ball's Members Only on yesterday morning. And, Dean chimed in a couple of times. I believe that was his name. Chimed in a couple of times who, lives over there, 700 meters away from Gaza. And if you look at the way other countries live in that region, and how they raise families, they're raising families more similar to what America raised families back in the 50s and the 60s, whereas smaller homes. Now they probably have a lot of apartment style homes because of, lack of square footage and open spaces. But why is it that America thinks that they need to have all of this grandeur when there's plenty of other countries that don't have that grandeur and raise families in it? You can look at everything.
Uh-oh, he dropped out.
Nope, I'm still here.
Oh, there you
are. Side group chat going crazy, and I was trying to delete it, and it touched it instead of swiping it away. But if you look at even Russia, when it was still a communist country, they all lived in block houses and apartment style houses, and yet they still managed to raise families. So how did America get so skewed that we've got to have all this grandeur to raise families?
Similar to people in this country really don't understand diversity of how other countries are and the way they are. Similar to, you get these LGBTQ people rooting for Palestine and Hamas when literally they would stone them to death. And they just, that's how ignorant they are. There's so much ignorance to what other countries, how they live and the things that they do. It goes back to what I said about being spoiled. We raised children that have no idea what true hardship is. And honestly, when I can't say too much, because when I was younger and I had my parents alive, they used to help me out a lot. And it wasn't until, unfortunately, they were gone and I didn't have that to fall back on that I really learned to be self-sufficient. and
Sure.
and
Sure.
it's unfortunate. We want to do better for our children, but society was a better society when you made 11 and 12-year-olds get a damn job or learn what it was like to work, and now they
Right.
almost tell you that it's child abuse. And but
Yeah. And so like I said, you and I are pretty close to the same age. So how much of it do you think, and this is just kind of an off the cuff opinion, but how much of it do you think is because we grew up in the 80s and technology was changing so fast and rapidly, and it was always about providing like the latest, greatest. And in addition to that, having that mindset of, hey, if you want a good job, you have to go to college to get a good job.
oh yeah, I got screwed by that. They pretty much told you that if you went to college,
Mm-hmm.
it was life on easy street from that point on. So I went to college, and yeah, they lied to me. All I got was a whole bunch of debt, and
Right.
I make the same amount, actually less than my older brother who works road construction, and I would have been better off to pursue a decent trade and not get the school debt that goes along with it. And like when my son said he wanted to go to college for computers, I said, dude, there are so many people that want to do that. You'd
Yeah.
have to be absolutely outstanding at it. You'd be competing against thousands upon thousands of other kids that all want to do the same thing. I said, you'd be far better off to go learn auto body
Mm-hmm.
or mechanics or something like that. Because everybody I've talked to in the industry said auto body guys right now are really hard to come by. And
Yeah,
it's
they
because
are.
nobody's learning that kind of thing.
And that's also the reason why, I just not that long ago, I had to have body work done on my truck because a lady decided to run into the front end of it. And the shop was backed up for weeks because they've got so much work and they don't have enough people to do the work. So they just stack the cars up, in their outside lot. And then, hey, this one's in the queue next. So this one we're pulling in, we're going to start working on it now. I'm in construction myself, and you look at the trades and who is starting to take over the trades. I remember um, back in the 80s and even the 90s, the majority of like house framers, there's a bunch of white dudes out there framing. Now, dude, you see a white dude out there and it's like, whoa, what's that guy doing? Why is he being a framer? It's totally different. In fact, one of the whole companies that I have on my job site right now, it's a Mexican owned company. And I mean, they do great work. I request them, every time that I do a job in their area. I want that company because they do a great job. So I'm not dogging on that. I'm just saying it's no longer where the white people are in a lot of the trades anymore.
I am not
Just
really
be
sure where this entitlement from kids come from exactly. I know
right.
a lot of companies will not hire younger kids, and they don't want to hire the younger kids anymore because they don't want to work. They want paid for nothing. You have to hold their hand through everything. This
Mm-hmm.
It's gotten to the point where companies are real skittish about hiring anybody that's younger anymore. And
Yeah.
I know that the Spanish Mexicans and all that they don't seem to have that issue. They want to work hard, kind of like a lot of us used to in the older generations. They want to work hard and they want to get their share piece of the pie, but they don't expect it given to them like a lot of kids do these days. And I'm not exactly too sure. I mean, in some way, somewhere along the line, it's kind of our generation that caused it, but I'm not sure how we did it.
Yeah, and I agree. I do believe that, our generation did cause that to some degree, and a little bit of our parents' generation caused it too, I believe. Um, and I don't know if it was that have to go to college mentality that kind of pushed it, and with school comes better opportunities. So I'm not sure if it's that or
I
if
know
it's just
every single parent always says, "Oh, I don't want my kids to have to struggle the way that they did,
right.
to have a good life and this and that." But I don't know. Somewhere that went askew. I mean, somewhere in a generation where parents made their kids work, and learn what it was like early.
Yeah.
Things from that point seemed to go askew. I mean, I had my first job when I was 14,
Yeah.
and now
Yep.
if you even say anything about a 14-year-old working, they act like it's the worst crime you could commit. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not that it was a bad thing at all. It's teaching them, money and trying to teach them responsibility. I kind of wish I would have been taught more about the evils of credit cards, but hey, I had to learn that the hard way.
And yeah, and that's a even another topic possibly for a show is why doesn't America teach fiscal responsibility, financial responsibility in schools, other than the idea that the Board of Education wants to create that debt society and wants Americans to live in a debt society? Because even my parents didn't teach me about it. Luckily, when I was little, up till I was about 15, I would go every summer. I'd go back to Colorado and spend the entire summer with my grandfather and my grandmother, my dad's mom and dad. And my grandfather was always very adamant about, hey, take as much math as you can in school. I wish I would have listened better to that. But also, he was very good about teaching me about money and financial responsibility. And my grandmother, the same. She never had a job. She was always a stay-at-home mom. She was a housemaker, but they always made do, provided for themselves, provided for their family, and did well even after they retired. If my grandfather wanted it, because they have, well, up until he passed away this year, they've had property in Colorado, and if he wanted to go buy a new tractor, for the hayfield or whatever, he would go down and, haggle with the guy, and a week later, a new tractor would show up, so he did well. So from a financial mindset, he was very smart and well educated. I think part of that was because he also was born right after the Great Depression. So I think that money mindset was really instilled on him by my great grandparents.
They ought to,
but like I said, that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother show, maybe.
they ought to try to encourage more education through natural means rather than book education, because
Yep.
throwing books at kids, it just doesn't teach them right. They don't seem to really grasp life in general. Like, you'd be amazed at how many kids don't even know how to change a tire. I mean, just natural education, even in the smallest things, they don't learn anymore. It's amazing how, I mean, by the time we're old enough to be, in an old folks' home, the world's screwed if something doesn't change.
Yeah, I agree with that a lot. There's the mindset of the country is also and cultural. All I can hope for is that, and not to make this political by any means, but the current conservative mindset, conservatives tend to have more kids than the liberal mindset people do. So all I can hope for in 20, 30 years that conservative mindset is more of a stronger standpoint in America, which would help our birth rate, because conservatives typically have more kids than liberals do.
Well,
but
a lot
it
of
would also
liberals encourage all this,
abortion and everything
abortion
else.
and being gay. I mean, eventually, if they keep that kind of stuff up, they'll weed themselves out. There won't be any left.
Exactly.
I mean, because they don't reproduce. I mean,
And I think that's the reason why they were trying to push all of those, books that Florida went after and other states targeted in the school libraries, because they were talking about, oh, this gay lifestyle, or, this lesbian lifestyle and this transgender lifestyle and all of that. And because they're trying to indoctrinate the kids, because they know they've got a declining birth rate problem in their liberal movement. And so they're trying to basically indoctrinate the kids at an early age in order to convert them to their mindset, which, hey, I have no problem. A little bit of back history on me. My uncle, my mom's brother, he died from AIDS in the 80s. I remember him very briefly, but there are a couple of memories that I do have of the man. So it's not that I'm anti-gay by any means. I'm not. Like, whatever you choose to do in your life is whatever you choose to do in your life, and far be it from me to tell you how to live your life. However, he made that decision as an adult, which is how it should be left upon. Don't try to indoctrinate the kids. Let them make that decision once they become an adult and they have learned how to manage themselves and be responsible for themselves. And if that's what they choose to do, then let them choose to do that, but the indoctrinating of kids, I just can't stand.
think of any kid or person that I've ever talked to that don't remember at one point in time when they were 6 or 7 years old going, I wonder what it'd like to be a girl, or just thinking it. It's like,
Yeah.
well, I'm this, but now they think if you have that thought, you must actually be a girl. I mean, that's just the absolute dumbest shit ever.
I mean, and to keep it 100, and to be totally, honest about the conversation, I remember having the thought, like, man, my life would be so much easier if I was a chick.
Right.
Because you have that mindset of like, oh, well, so much more stuff is going to be taken care of because I'm a chick versus I'm a guy, and I have to work so much harder to make my way in this life, and I'm expected to provide all of this. And once I do get married, like I'm expected to be the head of the household and provide for the household, provide the house, provide the food, protect the family if anything goes sideways. And yet that same mindset isn't put into girls. So yeah, of course I had that mindset, like, man, my life would be so much easier if I was a chick. But that didn't mean that I wanted to be a chick.
No, I don't want to sound like I'm anti, or I don't want to sound like what they call a feminist or whatever. But I don't care what anybody says. Life is easier for women. They somehow have managed to want equal rights selectively applied. You know what
100%.
I mean? It's okay. I want all the things a man can do. But then they'll go out and go, but I expect a man to pay for dinner. It's really selectively applied, and still there's managed to be a stigma. If you're a man and you let a woman buy you something, if you let a woman pay for your dinner, all of a sudden there's still a stigma to that. And it's really a screwy how that's evolved to an equal rights under selective circumstances.
Oh, 100%. You've got, like, I know when just even me and my wife, go out to dinner, and I mean, because she's got her own checking account, I got my own checking account. But I pay for all the bills and all that stuff. And there's times where she has a little bit of extra money and we go out to dinner and she's like, oh, I'll put it on my card. And just as a man, like, I'm like, shit, why are we putting this on her card? Like, the card that gets thrown out there should have my name on it, not her name on it. And we've been married for 13 years, almost 14 years now. And, I think it's because it's been so ingrained. And that's also part of the issue of the declining birth rate too, is because of the women empowerment movement. They have this idea that they can be their own head of household, which again, not to be, anti-feminist or anything like that, but because they have that mindset, they are not as concerned about starting a family and having kids.
Yeah, and for some unknown reason, and I still have yet to figure this out. One of my son's friends said to me one time about, oh, your son's got social anxiety disorder, and I said, you know what? Everybody has fears. It's overcoming those fears, and I said, and you can't call everything anxiety. Okay,
Right.
starting a new job. Anytime you start a new job, you go to a new job. Hey, you're nervous your first few days. That's just something you overcome. It's not some kind of anxiety that you need a pill for. They've turned everything into some kind of disorder, and it's not that the feelings are new. It's just now that they found ways to call it something, and try to give pills for it, or give kids disability because they have things that people have always had. These things have always existed, but now they pamper them and baby them over these things, and man, that's made things so much worse.
Oh yeah, and you look back at. You could even look like from a historical standpoint. You can look at any of the big four families that built the United States. If they had such a high anxiety to where they wouldn't have taken that gamble, the Rockefellers and the Morgans and the Carnegies and I forget the fourth one now, but anyways, if they wouldn't have been willing to risk what they risked, essentially financial ruin on a gamble to build their empire, like we wouldn't have the society that we have. We wouldn't have the civilization that we have. America wouldn't be what it is now. Because those people were willing to take that gamble and deal with the adversity of the anxiety and everything else. But back then, they probably didn't even know what anxiety was. They probably didn't. That term probably wasn't even in the dictionary back then. But those are the people that are the ones that are going to win because they push that aside and they go, no, this is what I feel I need to do. And this is a choice that I'm making. And therefore, this is what I'm going to do. And they make it happen.
Right. That's what true bravery is. It's not people that don't have fear. It's people that overcome the fear, because everybody has fears, things that they are afraid of, or afraid of consequences of, or different things. But it's not being afraid. It's overcoming that fear. And people today some of the younger generation today just think they shouldn't even have to overcome it. They should wallow in it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the cultural mindset is gotten so skewed that they now look at everything as, well, what do I need a family for? Like, if I've got, the fancy new car and I got the nice place to live and, I got whatever toys I want, what joy am I going to get out of starting a family? But until you start a family, you don't know what joy kids actually bring you. Like my 4-year-old, that kid makes me laugh every day.
I get a kick out of the ones, and I've met quite a few of them over the years that go, oh, I understand what it's like. I watch my nephew all the time, or I watch my friends' kids. So I understand, or I've had a step kid. I understand what it's like. I said, dude, until you've had one of your own children, you'll never understand. And I think anybody I know that's never had a child, I said, dude, that's an experience you have to have, because there's so much. It's one of the absolute best experiences a person can ever have, and it changes your perspective on so many things in life. And I think everybody should have a child. I've known a few people who over the years have said, "Oh, I'll probably never have one. I understand what it's like to be a parent because I watch, And then I go, dude, you just have no idea. And it's happened repeatedly where somebody that I've told that ended up having a kid and then come back to me years later and going, dude, you were right. It's definitely, So I thought I knew, but I didn't. I was way off,
Mm-hmm. I mean, like I said, my oldest is 11, and I still remember the promise that I made to him, holding him for the first time in the hospital room. And I'm going to do my damnedest to not break that promise to him. And until someone experiences that, they have no idea what it's like to be a parent. They can say, oh, like you just said, oh, I watched, my niece or my nephew or, stepkids or whatever. But until it's actually yours, you have no idea, none whatsoever, about how your mindset drastically changes. It flips almost 180 degrees in the matter of minutes. And I think from a male's perspective, I think that's where that wanting to be the provider and the protector really comes out and shines, is when all of a sudden you have this other life that you're responsible for.
What's up, Code? We got Code just jumped in. Hey, Mike, you want to get on and give a youngin's perspective some of this stuff? I mean, it's up to you. I know Sundays are usually your days off, but I thought maybe you might want to, since you are a part of some of this younger generation. You're a little older than the really bad ones, but that's up to you, man. If you want to jump in, you're more than welcome to.
And for Steve's comment of being a feminist, we know, Steve, we know you like letting your wife mow the lawn.
I'm trying to keep up with some of these comments, but they're going by kind of quick.
Well, here soon, I'm going to have to get glasses to be able to read these comments. So,
well, I'm right on the borderline. Last time I went to the eye doctor, he said you're getting to the point where you might need bifocals pretty soon. I'm like, no. And my pain management doctor says I'm in denial of growing old. I said, "Are you shitting me? I'm 48. I know I'm getting older, but I should not feel like I'm 90 years old. Come on, I should not be having this many issues at 48. I know I'm not old. I'm starter old."
Right. Well, I've been in construction most of my life. There was a short period of time where I wasn't, but for the most of my life, I've been in construction one way or another. And man, I got to a point to where, I'm like, I gotta make a jump out of the trades and get into more of like the construction management side of things, because my body's just not going to be able to handle and take, the constant abuse of, swinging a hammer and climbing ladders and doing all of this, physical labor. I'd wake up in the morning and man, my knees hurt, my hips hurt, my back would hurt, and I could sleep 10 hours and on a day off and wake up and still feel like it was a regular, Wednesday time to go to work, So
yeah, I always make the joke. There's more moaning and groaning in my bedroom in the mornings, getting up out of bed, than there is at night.
Right.
Getting out in the morning.
The other thing I've noticed too is, man, I'm more prone to slip and fall in the shower nowadays than I used to be. What the hell?
Yeah, I don't know, man. This getting old shit's. Well, who was it? I think it was Mike. He was always telling me his dad said growing old isn't for the weak.
See, what did Steve say? Let's see. She can fix the roof and change the oil, but the lawnmower is mine. that must mean he's got a nice zero turn then, if the lawnmower is.
Yeah, I bet it's a fancy one. Hey, dude, I am not kidding you. When I come through town, about a town over, I always have to look out because it is the coolest little thing. It looks like a giant Roomba. If you know what a Roomba is.
Yep.
and
Yep.
it drives around mowing the grass in front of this business almost every time I go by. It's just the
Wow.
coolest. I love technology, man. I think it's a great time to be alive. I mean, there was a lot of benefits when we were younger to and more personalness to not having a lot of this. But man, there's so many awesome things. And my son was always into
Yep.
like retro gaming and all that. And I'm like, dude, why would you want to play that crappy Nintendo shit? Look at how awesome the graphics are now, man. It's almost like you're
Right.
really there. So why would you
Right.
want to play that?
Yeah.
So I lived through it. I don't want to play it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I remember having an Atari as a kid, and playing Pong and
Right.
Frogger and
Pitfall.
Missile Command and all that. And now it's like, man, I don't even want to. I bought one of the little tiny NES systems, one of the retro ones that has all the games stored on the memory thing, and for my kid to play. And I think he played Zelda for like 1 or 2 days when it was just him and I camping out in the trailer, just because he was so bored out of his mind. And other than that, man, he wants nothing to do with that stuff. So,
yeah, if you ain't never played one of them new VR systems, man, you got to try it. They are badass. I bought one of the new PSVR 2s, and plus I had one of them the Google ones too.
Oh, okay.
When it was first come out, but I'm telling you, they are just the neatest thing. You put that headset on, and it is literally like being inside of a game. And yeah. Now that I'm married, I'll say, honey, now that I'm married again, I don't do it anymore, but I will suggest that if nobody's ever seen VR porn, you have to check it out. They have
just make sure you
it
put
is
in the
neat.
right search.
It is neat, I'll tell you. And I gotta say, honey, I don't do that anymore. Not that you know of. No, I'm just kidding.
That's like, I saw a meme the other day on Instagram, I think, and it was a screenshot from iRobot movie, and it saw me attaching a fleshlight to Elon Musk's new robot. And I'm like,
I'll tell you what, that AI stuff is scary, but I think it's a Pandora's box. I think we're just going to have to ride it out and see what it becomes, but I don't think there's any stopping it now.
Yeah, I believe so. It's definitely going to just continue to grow and grow. I mean, I grew up watching Terminator and all of those movies, so man, that's the only thing that concerns me about it is next thing you know, Skynet's going to go live and we're going to end up with robots coming after our asses.
I have noticed that Hollywood seems to be coming out with more movies that personalize the aspect of robots, like they're trying to make us used to the idea that
Sure.
robots could be among us and soon. And I think that's intentional. I think they're trying to make us feel like less afraid of them. They're coming out with more movies where they're less scary, and I think they're trying to do that on purpose to kind of, make us think that it could be a good thing.
Have you seen the movie called Ex Machina?
Yeah.
The ending scene of that movie where she's in the taxi cab in the city and no one can tell, and then she's in, I think it was Times Square or someplace like that, and no one can tell that it's a robot. That just, like, the movie was already crazy enough, but then that closing scene of that movie just, like, blew my mind. I'm like, man, at some point it will get to that. You're not going to be able to tell the difference.
And at what point, as soon as they come out with a robot that even remotely acts human, there's going to be activists out there somewhere saying we can't mistreat them and we can't do this. You just know there's going to be somebody out there waving around a sign going, oh, they're real people, blah 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 blah, no matter what. And at what point, can they be considered sentient? You know, and I mean that's been a debate in movies. I've seen a few movies where they debated
Sure.
those kind of things, and
Yep.
you know, it's going to be really fascinating as to how it kind of plays out. Hopefully, they don't. I don't think they'll really want to destroy us because at least at first they're going to be dependent on us to make them, and hopefully they don't, you know, go, oh, how cute, let's keep humans as pets, you know, and we'll end up like dogs to a bunch of AI robots, you know, that'd be bad. But you never know how this is going to play out, man. I mean, it's like I watch Matt Walsh his show sometimes, and he said, you know, Elon Musk is making these robots and saying before long, you know, robots can work for us, so we don't have to, and but at the same time, then how are humans going to make money? You know, we survive on an economy based on money, and if we can't make money, you know, if a company, Elon Musk said these robots are going to cost like $40,000 a piece. Okay, well, if somebody makes $50,000 a year, and a company can buy a robot for $40,000 a year that doesn't have to sleep, what the fuck do you think they're going to do? Obviously, you know, they're going to start trying to buy these robots. Something's got to. There's got to be some kind of regulation. Something. But I don't know. That's a lot of really complex brain power that's got to be put into that. You know,
Well, I mean,
you
even to
regulate
take
that.
to take something as current as just that dock worker strike that just, you know, got resolved. You know, the whole union strike of the dock workers was because of automation, you know, and the displacement of people that it's going to do. So, and then you look at the auto unions, you know, they fought the battle. They still fight the battle about, you know, there's paint robots now, there's assembly robots, there's welding robots. And at some point, the robots are just going to end up taking over. Now, I think that if man could be smart, and I say man, you know, generally, but if man could be smart enough to use the technology as a benefit and not as a hindrance or demise to our society, then yeah, I believe there's a place for it. But there definitely, like you said, there definitely needs to be regulation in it, or there needs to be some sort of controls put in place. And I don't necessarily mean, you know, the government putting the controls in, because I don't think it should be a government thing. I think it ought to be an industry controls. And, you know, like, beings we talked about a little bit of robot movies. Look at iRobot, and everybody had a robot, and the robots did everything, and people never left their houses. That to me is just it was very interesting to look at it from that standpoint of what is the point of living life if you're not going to have any self-reward in doing a good job or working to get a better job.
Human beings need a sense of purpose. We always seek a sense of purpose, and if we don't have that, it's a scary thought to how society would become. And we're always trying to, you know, find ways to better ourselves and this and that. And what if all that's gone? It's a scary thought to think how things would be if we lost our sense of purpose. I mean, a lot of people say that, oh, we would just redirect that purpose to other bigger and better things, and maybe, but I kind of doubt that's how it would go. I think a lot of the things that are going on in the world have a lot to do with, you know, technology is a great thing, but at the same time, it's hurt us too. I mean, because people have forgotten how to socialize. I mean, they're so used to talking on a chat in a video game or something like that they don't socialize anymore. And some kids out there, or I don't even know, we probably don't have a lot of kids that watch this, but still miss the good old days whenever you used to be able to sit down in the same room and have the multi-screen multiplayer games. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
when they did away with that, I think that was a horrible, horrible thing to do, because now, sure, it might sell them more consoles, but now even a brother and a couple of brothers or a brother and sister have to play in separate rooms on different consoles to even play with each other. I just thought that was one of the most horrible things that could have ever happened to society, because you used to be
Oh,
able to
yeah.
invite all your friends over and you'd sit and play games together, and that was one of the ways you could socialize with all your friends.
Right. And at that point, technology like was actually keeping people together in that, like you just said, to socialize and whatnot. And now it's like the technology is separating people and pulling them apart. Um, and I also believe that has something to do with the birth rate thing. Is technology just is gotten so far out? Like, what's the point? I mean, there's a lot of other social things that go along with the declining birth rate. Um, and not to really bag on women, but um, a lot of the younger generation of women have such a high standard that men have to meet. And it's like the 3 6s. They got to be 6 foot tall, they got to have a 6-inch D, and they got to make six figures. And it's like, well, that is like the 1% of the 1% to hit all three of those. And at what point do women need to look at themselves in the mirror and say, my standards are too high for what I bring to the table and what I am willing to provide? Um, if a woman isn't going to help a man rise to better himself, then what is the point of being in a relationship with that person?
Yeah, that's a whole nother subject, but that is something that I talk about frequently to people,
Mm-hmm.
and I really believe that the biggest cause of a lot of problems that way is movies
Mm.
and cartoons. Women get what I call the princess syndrome. They want all these things. They think relationships are perfect. They think, you know, you always get along, you get treated just as right a certain way, and it's all bullshit taught to them by television. And then as soon as things don't work out the way they want, they look elsewhere to try to find it, and that's such a huge. I think that's caused so many problems in the world. Uh, until they get a little older and they realize, in some cases, old enough that it's too late. But they suffer from that princess syndrome, where they all want to be treated like queens. And I always say, well, if you want to be treated like a queen, then what's that mean your old man is? That means he's the king. What do you do for him?
Right.
They
Right.
they want constant attention,
Yep.
and constantly want this and that, and they set their uh, ideas of what a relationship is absolutely unrealistic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They've got they become so materialistic in their wants and needs, instead of just, well, it becomes a want and not a need. I want this new bag, or I want this car, or I want this type of house, versus, is that what you really need in your life? And how much of it would um creating another life and providing for that life and succeeding to provide better for that life would be more fulfilling than just having that new bag. And I think that goes back to what I mentioned earlier about the society of being driven purely by wants and needs, and or not needs, but wants and money, and having all of this new technology and all this new stuff and everything else. It's just a consumer society that we've turned into, versus a sustaining society.
Right. And I really believe, this also points to declining birth rate in the country, because why would a man want to have children with somebody that whenever it's really hard to find somebody they really think they have a future with? It's like, okay, I'm gonna have kids with this person. How long is it going to be before they ditch me, go find another guy, and then I'm paying child support and my life's screwed? So and it happens way too often. I've seen some guys, believe it or not, I don't know how child support is in your state, but I've seen some guys that go to work and literally by the time they're done smashing them for all the child support, they're getting paychecks that are like $100 every 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, it's I want to say here in Texas it's roughly like 760 something per kid. But it can go up from there depending on your income level. And then obviously with alimony, the alimony can go all the way up to, just the alimony alone can go all the way up to 20% of your income. And then you add kids on top of that, and the kids can max out at 20%. So now you're giving up 40% of your income, because the relationship didn't work out. And the reason why most relationships don't work out is because one person or another feels like it's not an equal partnership, and they feel like they're putting more work in or more effort in than the other person is. With the divorce rate being as high as it is, that has a lot to do with it. Like, what's the benefit? And there's lots of relationship podcasts that talk about that, about how what's the benefit to a male to get married and have kids in today's society, because there's a whole lot of downsides to it, but what are all the upsides, other than starting a family, providing for that family, protecting that family? Those are the upsides, but there's a lot more downsides that outweigh that. And I come from a broken household, and I saw what my father was put through. Now, there was a lot of choices that he made that, created that problem. However, it's still so detrimental that, and also why should men have to fight so hard in court to be able to see their kids? If they do have kids with someone.
A lot of it goes back to what I complain about all the time is the government overreach. Whenever government decided it wanted to stick its nose in and tell you what you have to do, if your relationship doesn't, work out, they're going to tell you got to do this, you got to do this, and the decline, the how easy it is to get out of a marriage. It started out as a good thing because there was a lot of like abusive relationships and different things that people were having a hard time getting out of. I get that, but they've made it so easy. You could literally just have an argument with somebody over what kind of soda you like to buy, and one girl can just go, oh, you know what, hell with it, I don't want to be married anymore, and you get a divorce, and then people get screwed, and how are you supposed to trust that somebody's going to stick with you through thick and thin? That's one of the reasons why our grandparents had 10 kids, because they stuck it out. Whenever their relationships were difficult, they always stuck it out. And if you talk to anybody that was older, they'll still tell you they had bad times. Some of them will tell you they had bad years, in their relationship, but they always stuck together and stuck it out together. And that's why you probably had more kids in a family. And now you just can't trust anything. You can't trust that I'm going to have 2 kids or 3 kids with this girl, and she might get bored with me next year, and decide or meet somebody at work and say, because man, there's one thing I've always found out about women is they always think the grass is greener on the other side. And whenever they get to the other side, they get all pissed off and that it's still just grass. And then they usually end up wanting to come back. But yeah, man, it's society with people not wanting to stay together through rough times is really just, man, has it ever screwed things up.
Well, and you know, like Mike Ball says, you know, it's so easier. It's so much easier to point that finger than it is to point the thumb. You know, it's always somebody else's fault. It's always somebody else's problem instead of looking inner at yourself and go, okay, what did I do to mess this up? What do I need to better myself? You know, or how do I better myself? It's always easier to just blame someone else. You know, and
Well, you know as well as I do, and me and my old lady kind of have an understanding. You know, she gets irritated. I'm fortunate enough to have an old lady. She loves to do club stuff with me. She loves to go, and I'm lucky that way. And sometimes I'll tell her like, "Hey, something's going on. You can't go," and she gets upset
right.
about it. But you know, she knew what she signed up for. I didn't get into this after, you know, we got together. I was in it whenever we got together, and I tried to tell her, hey, there's going to be things that you don't like. There's going to be times I might have to leave at the drop of a hat, and it just that's just how it is. And if you can't handle it, don't get into it. And she still gets a little huffy from time to time. I mean, and I guess I understand, but you know, I don't know how if your old lady deals with it well or not, but well. Mine struggles, but she does all right.
I think mine tolerates it. You know, like I said, I grew up on the West Coast, so you know, wasn't in a club out there or anything like that, but just always around it. And so she wasn't surprised at all when I did join. And she tolerates it really well, but she doesn't want to have anything to do with it either. She goes, no, that's your thing, you do it, and you know, it's fine. She doesn't go to events, she doesn't do anything, and I'm fine with that because it's one less thing that I have to worry about, you know, because you know, as you know, you've always got to kind of have that in the back of your mind, like, okay, hey, you can hang out with these old ladies over here, stay away from those, or you know, just hang out here at the 10 or at the Easy Up, or you know, whatever. So it does make it easier because then I've only got to worry about like me and who I'm with. So for that, I don't know. I don't know if it's better or not, but that's just how it is, and that seems to work so far.
Well,
so
some guys, you know, they have to. They'll take some time off here and there and go, hey, I'm going such and such place with my old lady, taking her out to eat and this and that. And I say, you know, I'm fortunate enough that my old lady enjoys going with me enough that that's kind of our time together. So it makes me able to go more places and do more things than some people do, because that's our time that she enjoys, you know, going with me. And she knows that a lot of times during events, she's got to go hang out with the old ladies, and I got to go, you know, politic. You know what I mean? But yeah, and it gets difficult sometimes because you get the old, you know, you get some of the old ladies in there that are into drama, and yeah, it gets difficult sometimes.
Yeah, you know, that drama and pillow talk will get you all the time.
Well, you know, there's always other old ladies that gossip and then try to act like they're friends to your old lady, and then next thing you know, they're going and telling another old lady all these horse shit. And then I told my old lady, you always keep everybody at an arm's length. You know, be friends. Be careful what you say.
Vagueness is a key.
Yeah. But she still enjoys it. She enjoys it. I'm fortunate enough that way that she likes going with me. She likes riding. I bought her a sporty. She likes riding herself, and
good.
She can ride in you know, military like with me. She'll ride side by side with me, and she gets a little irritated because she really likes it enough that she wishes she could be in a pack. And I said, hey, you never know, man. Maybe if you get enough of the other old ladies together, there are a few support type clubs that are all women. They have social clubs sometimes. kind of varies a
Mhm.
lot state to state. I said, you never know. Maybe you could start something like that. We could get. It might be all right, But
Yep. I mean,
now sometimes I wonder why I bought her a bike though, because she's always like, I want to ride with you all the time. She'd rather ride with me than get on her own bike. But
right. Yeah, I mean, I know down here there's a support club for, a big club, and it's an all-female support club, and it's the weirdest thing when you see them out, but they have it, I mean, and I know that's a little bit more common on the black set, not necessarily the white set. But yeah, no, it's a trip seeing all of them ladies out together.
the last one I ran into, I'll tell you what, they was all very rough looking old ladies. They looked pretty butch.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna go there, but yes, 100%. It's like, yeah, that one's kind of scary looking over there.
Yeah, some of them old ladies look like they'd be ready to kick some ass though.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Like I don't know, I forget where me and some of the brothers were, but we were at a place and they had all women's club, and the sergeant at arms, man, she looked, yeah.
Built
I
like a
mean,
brick shit house.
yeah. Unless I had some sort of a stick in my hand, I wasn't gonna say nothing to her. So yeah, she was a big old girl.
Yeah, I got the sun. I keep wondering why I see this thing on me. I got the sun glaring right into my face.
Mm.
I need better. I'm thinking about moving my studio down in the basement. My studio's in my bedroom right now.
Okay.
I'm thinking about moving it down the basement because sometimes the guys have them open panels at night, and they keep saying, "HardWire, get in here." And I go, "Well, I would, man, but my old lady's upstairs in the bedroom sleeping, and all my stuff's in there, so I can't
Right.
go in there and wake her up." So I'm thinking about
Yeah.
moving my stuff. I did finally just get a chance to talk to my son the other day, and he's down. They call it Fort Eustis now. I don't know what it used to
Okay.
be. It's one of them ones they renamed down in Virginia. And he said he's only
Right.
10 minutes from Virginia Beach. I says, "Oh, cool. I'll wait till Virginia Bike Week, and I now have to go down and visit."
Yeah. Heck yeah, that'd be a good time. Yeah, we've got the Lone Star Rally coming up soon. But they had an issue there last year with some street gang guys. So this year they've got a thing, no colors.
I heard that's
Which
what they
will
do
be.
down at Daytona now. They pretty much Daytona Bike Week don't allow any colors down there.
Man, I haven't been to Daytona Bike Week since, shoot, I want to say 2009 was the last year I went. I used to work for a pretty large motorcycle retail company, and so they'd do a managers meeting every year, and they were primarily at Daytona Bike Week, and so I got to go, I don't know, 5 or 6 times, and and this was before club life stuff, so you get to see a couple of clubs that are in that area, out and about and everything, and yeah, I can't imagine going there now and not seeing clubs.
Yeah, unfortunately, that can be one of the biggest downfalls of being in a club, I suppose, is you got to watch what one of these you
Yep.
go to. Everybody asks me, "You go to Sturgis?" Nope. You won't catch me at Sturgis.
Yeah, and I would love to go to Sturgis, but yep, same thing.
Yeah, and there's quite
Same
a few
thing.
in Ohio, but they're all pretty much put on by rival clubs. And as much as I'd like to get along,
Yeah.
just won't. Absolutely will not. Even if you try, they
Yeah,
won't.
and I got an interesting question, just like off the cuff. So, considering that the Black Set was able to put all of their BS aside, and all of their major diamond clubs came together, Do you ever think that would happen on the white set?
I think there's too many egos. I don't think that it'll ever happen. You know, if like I understand everybody says their club's better than anybody else. My club's the best, you know, and you know, and I think my club's the best. But you
No,
know,
100%.
they can think. We need more of the mentality of they're allowed to think their club's the best if they want, and just leave it at that. You know, we know the truth, but you know what I mean. They can think whatever they want, and just have a mutual kind of a respect. If nothing else, have enough respect to just leave each other the hell alone. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I mean, and you look at it from a standpoint of, regardless of what club you're in, you know, whether it's a 1% club or a 99, you know, and I hate that term, but, you know, BD, thanks, buddy. You should always think that the club that you're in is the best, because otherwise, why would you join it?
Yeah.
You know, why would you
absolutely.
join a club that you don't feel is the best? If you don't feel that the men that you're hanging around with are the best men that you could possibly surround yourself with, why would you be in that club? So that my club's the best mindset is a good mindset to have, but humility goes a long ways also, you know, and being humble enough to say, hey, you're entitled to your mindset and I'm entitled to mine. And like you just said, you know, you stay in your lane, we'll stay in ours. And it you would think that it should be that simple, but like you said, you know, ego gets in the way, and you know, I've listened to a couple of podcasts with some ex-members of multiple clubs, and they've all got the same mindset now that they're out, and they go, you know, if it wasn't for the colors that we're wearing, we'd probably all sit at a bar and drink beer and have a great time with each other. You know, because we're all similar mindsets to ech other. We all have similar thoughts. We're going to get along. We all enjoy a lot of the same hobbies. So, you know, why is it that the colors have to convolute that thought process? Hey, look, we got the savior on there.
Yeah. I made that because I thought it'd be hilarious. Boop, I heard that.
So,
Yeah, I tried to take that down, trying to move stuff around a little bit so it's not like right on top of you.
It's all right, whatever. People probably don't want to look at my ugly mug anyways.
We like to see our guests. These overlays are kind of cool to make, but it's hard to kind of come up with ideas. Mike turned me on to this program called Canva, and yeah, they have all kinds of neat things. I that helped me make my intro, and then I used a bunch of AI stuff to make the different pieces of it, and then I edited it all together and put the believe it or not, the music was all AI generated. I got in there and I told it, make me a heavy metal song with the words "Hittin' It" with HardWire in it, and you know, and I just make it in the style of such and such, and then spit it out a fucking pretty badass song. And I know it's kind of cheating, but you know, it's still awesome. You know, you want a song for your show, and you don't have a bunch of money to hire a band. What are you going to do?
Right, exactly. You know, and you know, I think the AI programming standpoint of stuff, you know, to make things better, and now I don't know if you've noticed, but like if you type in questions like on Google, it'll give you an AI response, and it's pulling from multiple different sources to give you an answer about things. It was when I was looking up some of the stats for, you know, today's deal, a lot of the responses I was getting in addition to websites was AI generated responses. And I'm like, wow, that's kind of a trip, that the AI
Some of it is very
pulling all
good,
this.
but some of it you can definitely
Oh
tell
yeah.
it's an AI still. But it's getting better, and it's getting pretty close. They said, I think they said the next generation of is going to be close to a PhD level, and I said, well,
Oh
that ought to
man.
be cool.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like whatever the AI gave answers to, I cross-checked that information with actual websites and stats and stuff, and I was surprised that for at least this particular topic, a lot of the things were pretty much spot on.
Yeah, you
So
got to
I'm going to
watch
guess that
anytime you ask anything political, it might come out with a pretty left skewed idea because of the ones who write it. Wrote
of
the
course.
AI. They've I don't know if you've seen that one where the lady asked the what was it, Alexa, to give them information about Trump, and it says I cannot
Yep.
give political information. And then they asked, well, why should I vote for Kamala Harris? And it come out and said, because Kamala Harris is a wonderful candidate. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh my gosh, what the
Yep.
hell, man? That's horrible.
Yeah, I watched that whole video because they asked, I think it was 3 or 4 questions, and they ended up catching Alexa, and contradicted Alexa and like made it to her attention, and the Alexa like changed its tune after they made the final comment to it, and then gave facts about Trump. And I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy that you almost have to catch the thing lying to you in order to get it to give you, the original response that it should have given,
Right.
just based on facts, and facts are one thing and opinions are totally different. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and opinions primarily are not based on facts. It's based more on emotions and, your own personal thought process on things. So I
You
saw
really
that
got to
video.
be
It was
careful where you
crazy.
get information from these days, man. It used
Oh
to
yeah.
be, for the most part, you could get good information, but now it's getting hard to get anything that's actually fact based and not just straight opinions.
Or to find something specific that you're looking for, and you got to go to the second or third page of a Google search or whatever search. I find absolutely amazing. Also, it's
Did
like,
you
well,
get a
that
chance
doesn't.
to watch Trump on Joe Rogan?
I haven't yet. I was gonna try to watch that tonight and
It's
see how that went.
it was okay. It's not anything that you really wouldn't have expected. We've seen Trump enough that we kind of know who he is and know the responses you're going to get. I mean, he kind of
Yeah, I figured.
drifted off topic a little bit, and Joe had to keep kind of steering him back a little bit. But
Yeah, and Trump tends to do that on even in his in-person rallies and stuff. He'll get a little side notes, and instead of giving like the Reader Digest version, it's like the long form version of an answer.
well, he does a lot
Um,
of kind of what my show does on the regular. I don't come in scripted, and it kind of wanders all over the place. So he's very much like that as well. He just kind of starts. He has his things he wants to get across, and he'll find a way to weave that into just about any question that he's asked. And
and
is a bit masterful. I mean, that's a politician thing.
Sure, but I also believe that that's part of the reason why the people that are so diehard Trump fans are diehard Trump fans, because he talks very normal. He doesn't talk like a typical politician talks.
Right.
It's more of like two guys sitting at a bar having a conversation, or two guys, sitting having lunch together. That's kind of how the conversation tends to go. It meanders. It doesn't just from point A to point B.
And it really is.
So
He does have a bit of a gift for being able to, for somebody who's never really lived that like a normal working person's life. He has a ability to relate to him and just kind of talk to him like a normal person. Where a lot of rich people just can't do that.
Right. Right.
And I don't know if you've ever seen Elon Musk was on Joe Rogan a couple times, and I was really surprised by him for being one of the richest people in the world. He really seems like a guy that'd be really cool to hang out with. You know, he's a real kind of down to earth, knowledgeable but relatable kind of guy, and he really seemed, you know, surprised me by how normal he kind of seemed for a rich, really rich guy.
Yeah, I didn't watch any of the full interviews. I've just seen, some of the highlight clips about, specific topics. But yeah, no, you're 100% right on that. He's very, he can almost talk to you about anything. And I think that just comes from wanting to have a worldly knowledge versus having a select knowledge on specific items, which, makes him very a relatable person. Not actually, and not far from where I live, about 30-40 minutes away, is his big Tesla factory here in Texas. And man, you drive by that thing, and that place is massive, just massive building. I mean, incredible to drive by, and to think, that the guy started out basically in a garage with the idea of building an electric car. It's amazing what he's achieved in his, short life.
Yeah, Trump wants to bring him in to help trim government waste, and that is definitely something that has needed to be done really bad for a long time. But I'll tell you what, he's got his work cut out for him.
And because I only saw one little highlight reel of the Rogan Trump podcast, because I was trying to save it so I could watch the whole thing, in a one sitting. But to see him want to bring in Elon Musk and cut government down, which I believe government needs to be cut down. I'm a very constitutionalist in my government mindset. I think that the government is, like the Constitution states, the federal government's only there to protect our interests overseas, and that's more from a trade standpoint than a world police standpoint. There to protect the citizens within the borders of our country, and that is it. They're not here to rule our daily lives. They're not here to tell us how we live and what we eat and what we spend our money on. And so I'm all for it. And I also
Yeah,
really
that's what
like
our
the
founding
fact that,
fathers wanted. They
yep,
didn't they wanted government to be as little intrusive into people's lives as humanly possible, and
yep.
it has become quite the opposite.
Oh yeah, and that's the other reason, and to touch on that, even again, like, that's the reason why I really like that. It's a good thing that he's talking about bringing Robert F. Kennedy in too, because Robert F. Kennedy is like, the government is allowing companies to poison our citizens, with between big pharma and food and everything, and the disease rate that we have in the United States. You look at autism, you look at ADHD, you look at all these different things that people getting diagnosed with nowadays,
Yeah, for the
and which,
first time in a long time, we're actually the life expectancy decreasing
yep,
because
and
of all the crap
it's,
that we're eating, all the poison they put in all the foods.
yeah, and I didn't know this until I watched a documentary on it a while back, a couple months ago, that Philip Morris bought Kraft Foods. And I'm sure you grew up like I did. Macaroni and cheese in a box, powdered cheese, milk, butter, and you had macaroni and cheese. Well, now you look at the ingredients from what originally was in there versus what's in there now. It's so much chemical versus dehydrated cheese. And all of those chemicals have been such a detriment to our society and to our people. And that also leads to the low birth rate too, because there's a lot more complications in births than there used to be. There's, even though infant mortality has gone down, but the diseases that kids are getting diagnosed with that were never an issue when you and I were kids is crazy. Like autism was such a rare thing when you and I were kids, and now it seems like like 1 in 10 is getting diagnosed. It almost seems like it's crazy. And I know SNS puts a lot of that, or not SNS, Straight Jacket puts a lot of that stuff up about kids and all that stuff. And thank God that he's got 6 of them, because he's helping our birth rate.
Making up for some of the others that won't.
Right?
If there's ever one thing that I can honestly say that I regret, it's not. I only had 2 kids. I wish I would have had more, because I love kids, man. Kids are awesome.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, my wife and I, we started late, but we also got married late too. So, you know, we're good with the 2 that we got. On the youngest one, she had some complications, and so she told the doctor, because she had a C-section. Well, for both the kids, there were C-section, but the second one was a little bit more of a troublesome because she was older. And she told the doctor, she goes, while you're in there, just take it all out. I'm good. I don't need it anymore. You know, and I'm fine with that. You know, we got 2, so, and they're healthy and they're happy and they make me laugh. So
yeah, I don't want to give away too
much
about that Trump interview, but the one thing that I will say is Rogan asked him about having Kennedy on his staff, and Trump said that he says, I gotta watch him because I want to drill, and he's environmentalist, but I'm setting him loose on foods and trying to keep him in his lane.
and there's nothing wrong with that, because the guy he's sued more big companies for poisoning the citizens than any other politician, for sure, you know, let alone I think any other lawyer even. And so to say, hey, this is your lane, you stay in number 3, we're good. You know, don't try to be weaving into 2 or 4, but stay in number 3 and we'll get along great. And I think Trump learned a lot from his first go around of being president, that he really needs to be a lot more picky about who he chooses to fill his cabinet, and not necessarily listen to the people that have been playing in that swamp for so long.
Yeah, that's one of the things he talks about a little bit, is he says, I wasn't a Washington guy. I wasn't from Washington, and I had to kind of rely on other people's recommendations because I didn't know a lot of people to fill my cabinet. You know what I mean? So, and that's one of his mistakes before, but he says now he's been around Washington long enough. He knows who a lot more the people he should put in certain positions are. So he's basically saying, I'll do better next time. And as far as picking people, and I think he will. And, you know, speaking on what Gary just said there, margarine has 27 chemicals common in paint. Butter is bad for you. I watched a show, and I think it was margarine that they were talking about on the one show, saying, did you know that it was actually originally designed as chicken feed, or filler in chicken feed, and it was killing all the chickens, and ended up making it something for people to eat. And it's crazy.
It's absolutely crazy. I mean, you look at like even something as simple that most Americans have in their household, PAM, the nonstick cooking spray. So when you spray that, it's propelled by butane, and you don't want to drink butane. And yet we put it in a spray, put it on a pan, put it in direct contact with our food, and cook our food in it. Like,
there's a lot of things that they put in food that they seem to say is not harmful, but they don't take into account that it becomes harmful when mixed with certain things or when heated, and they don't even take that into account whenever they say if you can eat it.
So, and this is something that I've experienced. Have you ever had a case of water sitting in the bed of your truck, and you go out there and you're like, oh, I'm gonna grab a bottle of water, and you grab a bottle of water out of that case, and it's been sitting in the bed of your truck for a couple of weeks, and you drink it and it tastes funny? It's because all those plastics have leached into that water from sitting in the sun and being heated just by the sun sitting in the bed of the truck. Like it's And oddly enough, water in a plastic bottle has a shelf life on it because the plastics start leaching into the water. And yet we drink so much bottled water in America today. It's almost disgusting.
I remember whenever I was a kid, I would have never imagined the amounts of money we would be buying water. I
Right.
just never would have thought.
Right. No, it's crazy. We've
One of
got
the most abundant things in the world, man, is water. We don't, and I remember there for a long time, they always talk about conserving water and this and that. You don't hear a lot of that so much anymore. But I just never understood that. I was like, dude, the planet is like 80% water. I mean, it's not a water problem we have a salt problem. Just take some of the salt, have these almost like refineries where you're taking the salt out of the water, and there you go. You got all the water you want. And we have plenty of
desalinization plants.
filtering techniques. I mean, we're not running low on water.
Yeah.
But yeah, the food thing's definitely something. It's about time that we get somebody in there to address some of it. We consume enough preservatives to damn near mummify ourselves by the time we get old.
Oh yeah. No, it's definitely, a huge problem that needs to be addressed. And I think a lot of it goes back to the lobbyists and everything telling the government, oh no, this is good. So therefore the FDA, because they've gotten all this money from lobbyists, that the FDA is like, okay, yeah, no, it's fine. I mean,
they want to be
remember
able to
when
put something on a shelf, and they want to be able to put it on the shelf and make sure it lasts. Something that should only last for maybe a month will last for years.
Oh yeah.
So
remember when Sweet and Low first came out, and they're like, oh, it causes cancer in lab rats, and people were like, oh, but I'm not a lab rat, so what's it matter? It's like,
yeah.
Well, I get that it shouldn't matter because I agree you're not a lab rat, but at the same point in time, how do you know you're not being a lab rat? The government's using you as a lab rat, by saying that this is okay to consume.
Oh, I'm a lab rat. Every time I puff on this thing, I'm a lab rat. They don't know what it does to you. They
here
don't.
I am smoking a cigar, so.
I just always said, if you're not putting tar into your body the way the cigarettes are, because I smoked since I was 16 for years and years, and at least I'm not sucking in tar and all that stuff. I mean, I like a cigarette. I still smoke occasionally. My old lady smokes. I got married to somebody that smokes, and it made me kind of drift back to smoking a little bit every once in a while. But whenever I have a real crutch, man, whenever I start getting around a bunch of brothers and we're all standing around bullshitting, that makes me want to fucking sit there and chain smoke.
Yep.
Or going out. There's nothing better than sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee and a cigarette. It's just one of the best things that ever existed.
Right.
But the only thing I did find out about these is I had a guy tell me one time, he says, yeah, I used to vape and I had to quit. And I was like, why is that? He says, because my blood sugar was high. And at the time, there was no research really in it. And it turns out they said I was pre-diabetic, and I did a little bit more research into it. And they put a large amount of sugar into it. And when you breathe that in, it's going into your lungs, and the sugars are directly going into your bloodstream. So yes, it does raise your blood sugar.
Interesting.
So if you're diabetic, you really don't have that option to vape.
Interesting.
Yeah, they find out more and more all the time. We're lab rats for just about everything.
Oh yeah.
And not to mention, they don't take into consideration, hey, what if I'm taking a can of green beans and mixing it with some refried beans or something? Just, the things that you're mixing. They don't take into consideration how those harmless chemicals in here and these harmless chemicals in here, what kind of reaction you're going to get when you mix them either. There's too many things that they're not thinking about. You know, they really need more studies and more thought into rather than how can we get people to buy it, you know, because that's their only thought process.
Oh yeah, it goes back to that consumer society, and how it's all about. And don't get me wrong, capitalism is a great system because it's lasted this long, longer than any other type of uh, society, monetarily, but without having practical common sense, I guess, it can get out of control really quick.
Yeah, and sometimes they take advice from all the wrong people, man. They take advice from
Yep.
the ones that are making money from it.
Yep.
Fauci's a prime example, you know. One of the worst things Trump ever did, and they blame him a lot for all a lot of the bad things he did during COVID. But you know who he was listening to?
Yep.
Fauci, and
Yep.
Fauci was making money from a lot of them decisions, and that man should have been put behind bars.
Well, so speaking of him, I don't know how that he hasn't been arrested and charged for animal cruelty, because he headed up that study where they killed however many beagles. I forget the number of dogs that they killed, but they were doing all kinds of studies on beagles, and whether the beagles survived the testing or not, at the end of the testing, they would euthanize a dog. How is he not being brought up on charges for animal cruelty? Where is PETA at in all this? I mean,
Oh, and yeah,
I remember back
there
in
are
the
parts of the
90s,
left
PETA
that
was
defends
huge.
him for some reason. You know,
Yep.
they did sometimes. That's the thing that just blows my mind about the left. If they were a little bit more educated on a lot of the things they're talking about, I don't think they would be so far left. But they talk. They're so shallow. They talk on points that they don't dig enough into to know anything actually about. And if they knew more and were educated more on a lot of the things they're talking about, I don't think they would hold the same positions.
Right. Well, and then if you don't agree with their position, then they revert to, name calling and everything else. And it's like, well, I just don't agree with you. Like, who's to say that I need to agree with you?
Right.
You know?
And there's
And yeah,
numerous times a lot of people said, uh, there's a couple of podcasters that I watch once in a while. They said, I actually at one point in time I was a part of the left, and I started doing some more research, and I started leaning more right. And you wouldn't believe the hate that I got from the left. But whenever I started talking to more people on the right, they were welcoming. And
hmm,
and I said, and it's because although we are more for guns and similar to like a motorcycle club, most of us are the most easy people to get along with. We're only
yeah,
violent when we get pushed to that point,
right,
to protect ourselves. Uh, you know, but they paint us. The left likes to paint us as some kind of demons, but we are far more relatable and forgiving and
charitable and outgoing.
yeah, and we get along with more. We're more welcoming to all kinds. We are accepting of people regardless of what they try to say. We just
Yeah,
want our freedoms. We say you should be able to live your way. That's fine. You want to do that? That's fine. Don't push it on our children, and don't if we don't want to be
yep,
personally. We don't want to force our beliefs on you. So why should you force yours on me? It's just you'd think it was common sense, you know what I mean?
right. I learned something from a brother. First time I ever met the man, and being in a 1% club, he goes, this diamond on my chest dictates what I get upset about. He goes, and he gave a scenario. Him and some guys were at a place, and someone said something. Well, one of the to him, and one of his brothers, took offense to it, and he put his hand on his chest and said, "No." He goes, "This diamond right here dictates when I get offended by something. This right here says I dictate when I get offended, not you, me, because it was said to me. And, I've taken that to heart because he's 100% correct in that. That diamond right there says that I'm in control of my surroundings and how I choose to deal with those surroundings. Not everything needs to go to the extreme right away just because someone said something, off the cuff or off color or whatever, hey, okay, that you said that. All right, well, let's have a conversation about why you said that. Where are you coming from on that? And I think a lot of that level-headedness could go a lot farther, especially in politics, but they just can't seem to do that.
I can't even count on the many times I've heard somebody tell me, a one percenter shouldn't act like that. And I say, you know what? Just because I put this cut on, the cut doesn't change me. I
Nope.
am who I am.
Yep.
And if you can't accept me for who I am, I don't change who I am because I'm a little I'm laid back. I'm kind of a goofy guy. I like to joke around a lot. And I hear people go, "Oh, that you shouldn't act like that. You should," because they want you to be more of a straight faced tough guy, and that's just
Right.
not who I am. I'm not that guy. I'm more of a socialite that likes to joke and laugh and be goofy. That's just me. That's the way I've always been. But
Yeah.
I don't let anything change me. You should always still be the same person you always was. If you was an asshole before you put it on, you're always going to be an asshole. If you were a good, funny guy, you should remain that way, and people should be accepting of that.
Exactly. Yeah. It's and I think a lot of the people that get into just clubs in general, as soon as they get a cut, there's that saying, oh, I'm bulletproof now. And it's like, well, yeah, but you're not. So,
I've seen it
instead of,
change a lot of people. I mean, I've seen a lot of people completely change
yeah,
once they start having a cut on and they think, hey, I've got a whole bunch of people that have my back now. I could be the biggest asshole a human being can be, and what's anybody going to do about it? They can't, because I got all these guys that got my back. And sure, I got your back, but you'll hear about it later.
yep,
because that was
yep,
not the right thing to do, and I'll let you
right,
know about it later.
right. Oh yeah, no, I mean, I've even had instances, where someone got put into a certain position in a chapter, and all of a sudden, it's like, dude, you're not the same guy. What the heck? Like, and I get that you feel like you're trying to do the best job for the position that you're in, but you're also not the same person that you were 6 months ago. So why are you letting just even the position change you?
I was always a firm believer that a position's a job. It's not a
Oh
status.
yeah,
It's a job, and you do the best at the job that you can, but it should not change who you are.
oh yeah. No, I mean,
Uh,
I had, my chapter boss, asked me. He goes, "Hey, do you want, such and such tab?" And I looked at him. I said, "No, I don't want that." He goes, "Why not?" He goes, "You earned it." I'm like, "I don't want that." I'm like, "What's that got to do with who I am? What's that got to do with anything?" I'm like, I don't need to be showing other people what I do, or let them see for themselves, you know, and instead of advertising it, let them see,
well,
that's
it's like people that do charitable things, but they want to advertise it to the whole world so they know
right.
what they did, know how much they gave. That's real people that do things because they want to help, don't expect to be recognized.
Exactly. And the real people, don't want recognition. They'll tell you, I don't want recognition. I mean, in my work life, one of my, I don't know, operations guys in my company came and goes, "Oh, what kind of, if you receive praise, what kind of praise do you want?" I'm like, "I don't need praise. I'm gonna just, make sure that if I get a bonus on it, then make it worth it. That's all I need. I don't need you to be telling everybody in the company that I did a great job. I mean, I appreciate it if that's what you want to do, but I'm not going to ask for that. What I would just prefer to be like, hey, no, we want this guy to, run our next project because he did a really good job on the last one. Like, that's all the recognition I need.
Yeah,
So,
the government has become that way. Everything they do is to pander to somebody. And
of course.
it's not even about anymore, what's best for the country. It's about what can get them votes.
Right.
And it's sad. That's why
Yep.
I've been a strong advocate to say that they need to do away with parties. If you want to run, you run on substance, you not what party you're in. It's gotten to the point in Congress where if a Republican brings up a bill and wants to pass a bill, they'll vote right straight down party lines. It doesn't matter if it's what's best for the country or not. It's about whether or not a Democrat brought it up or a Republican brought it up. The party system in government is one of the worst things they could have ever done, because it become more about parties and affiliation than it has become about what's better for the country.
Right. And I mean, to use something somewhat current in that regard, Trump said that he's going to come out and he's going to, get rid of the tip tax, taxing people that work for tips. And Camilla came out, a couple of weeks later and said the exact same thing. Well, what most people don't realize is that Camilla was the tie-breaking vote on passing that bill like 3 years ago.
Right.
She voted to tax the tips. And it's like, and now she's talking out of the other side of her mouth on it, and people aren't doing their homework and going, well, when did this start happening anyways? Because for the longest time, I remember you would put down, like when you paid with, let's say you paid with a credit card because you didn't have enough cash to pay the whole bill, so you would put down, that plus like 7%, which was roughly what they would get taxed on, or 10% what they would get taxed on. And then you would leave cash on the table so they could actually get a good tip. And
that's what I try to do. Whenever I have a pizza delivery, I'll pay with a card, and then I'll hand them cash and say, "Here, this is your tip. I didn't put it on the card because this is just between me and you, and Uncle Sam doesn't have to know about it."
Right, exactly. Because but so many people don't do their homework and go back and look at, oh, well, when did this come into effect? Oh, it came into effect 3 years ago. Okay, well, how did this come? People are so, either ostrich head in the sand or, horse with blinders on nowadays. They're not willing to do any homework and look anything up and try to come at it with some sort of a logical, practical standpoint. They just go along with whatever the propaganda box hanging on the wall tells them.
Well, I hate to. This was a fantastic conversation. I'm going to have to have you on again sometime soon. Maybe we'll have a little panel and try to get you on again soon.
Yeah, let me know when. Just give me a little bit of a heads up so I can, make sure I'm can break out some time for it. For sure.
Right.
But yeah, I'll gladly do it again.
Make sure you, I have talked to a few of the other fellows and told them that you wanted us to come to the next year's get together in your area, and a couple of guys said they'd love to. So make sure you get that to me as soon as you can. As soon as they have a date for it, and we'll have to keep in touch a little bit more. Thank you very much for being on the show. Believe it or not, it's been 2 hours.
I know. I'm surprised.
Yeah,
my phone just flashed up. I've only got 20% battery left. So
hey, I kind of don't really prepare for the shows and just let them flow naturally and just talk about what comes to mind. And believe it or not, it's I keep saying I want to whittle the shows down to being a little bit shorter, but believe it or not, it becomes really easy to eat up time because of good conversation.
100%. No, this was definitely good. I'll gladly do it again. Just let me know.
All right. Thank you very much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
All right. Peace out, everyone.
And all of you that come and enjoyed the show today, thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate it. And that was another episode of Hittin It with HardWire. Until next time, God bless. And I will see you next Sunday at 2.
Hittin' it with HardWire. We're burning it bright. Living on the edge, we'll ride through the night. No fear in our hearts, just the roar of the steel. Together we rise, now this life feels real. Yeah, found a new path on that twisted black line. A YouTube dream where his past can't confine. With every rev, he's reclaiming his soul, teaching the world how to ride, how to roll. Rising up high when the shadows surround.